Morning, Bridge Nation. Thanks for being with us. This is the Public Eye. I'm Ronnie Thwaites. My friend Pernell is away this week. He's celebrating. Soon come back, though. Happy to join us on the Public Eye. We don't talk gossip and give rumor and dig down people on this program. We just give the news of what's happening in our fair land, and we ask for your views, and we share our perspective with you. Everything open, nothing hidden, wanting only the liberty and upliftment of our people. That's what we're for. This is what the Bridge 99 is for, linking the diaspora all over the world, and particularly so at midday Jamaican time. I think it's 1 o'clock U.S. time. We join Irwine Clare on Irie Jam, our sister station in New York City. Yeah? So this is a unique piece of media that we carry out on the platform of the Bridge 99. The WhatsApp and text line is 876-551-5782, and the studio line is 876-676-4996. Happy to follow Tony Rebel and Rasperians. That's a wisdom today. The teacher shouldn't have take up the desk and attack back the guy who was troubling her, you see? Shouldn't have. You can't match violence with violence and hope that peace come out of it. Yeah? And the president of the Jamaica Teachers Association is not a wise man. Yes? This bit about you have to fight back. That's not the issue. You know that, sir. If you're going to stand up to every provocation that any teacher, any professional, any worker, any Jamaican, any person in the world get, and you're going to fight back because you have the right to self-defense, yes, well then the whole of it going to go dead, you know. So that's a very unwise message both to your colleagues, and not only that, but we are supposed to respect you as the leader of perhaps the most noble profession in the country. You forfeit that. You forfeit that. Step back. Yeah? Terrible situation happening in our schools. Worse because the police person in charge of the area, the superintendent, is reported in the Gleaner today as saying that he's been trying, first of all, that these problems of classroom and schoolyard violence are widespread in the police division. That's very bad. What we're going to do about that? And secondly, that he has been trying to get a meeting up with the principal of the particular school, Tivoli Gardens High School, for a long while to deal with it, and he can't get a meeting. And this is the same principal who is so overcome that he faint once he hears what is happening in his school. Well, no one has any control over that. But at the same time, that doesn't give an impression of strength, does it? So if you faint, who stand up in your place? And if you're not able to withstand that kind of pressure, what does that say? Pretty bad. And why are the young children, teenagers, older ones, why are they taking step with the teachers and with the school personnel? Why? Why is it so bad now? Can we come to grips with the fact that we've been out of school for 2 years and that a lot of bad habits have been picked up and a lot of good habits have been put down? And we need a systematic and comprehensive approach to that, don't we? Do we have that now? Sending these violence resistors into the school, as the Commissioner of Police says, is really, I don't think that's adequate, you know. This thing needs much more than that. It needs a rethinking of the role of administration and discipline in our schools. And that can be done very, very promptly. It demands a full appreciation of the risks involved. Yeah. Criminalizing young people's exuberance and young people's miscreants, see, is not the answer. Yeah. So let's be humble and let's try and avoid that horrible situation where the school finds itself, one of their students is on suspension, charged. The teacher must be nursing some hurt and has some questions to ask herself and should be asked by her administration and by her profession. Yeah. And also carrying gambling and marijuana in a school. You think that is the first time it happened yesterday or the day before? How'd that go? What are we doing? Where's the school board in this? Where's the people who sponsor the school, whether it is church or constituency or who? And what is the texture of Jamaican culture, which we're about to memorialize in all of the nice entertainment events that either inure to or prevent this kind of behavior? The point I'm making, Bridge Nation, is that we have a very deep, deep problem, and that simply dealing with it in the way that it appears to be dealt with and ignoring it most of the time is not the answer. Yeah, there's another thing that Tony Rebel said that I want to really endorse, and that is if you put young people to work, it won't mean that everybody is cured of their antisocial tendencies, but it's much more likely that you'll be able to identify those who are of that mind and deal with them. Indeed, it will take hard policing in respect of those. But look at what we're doing. We're spending pitifully little. We're taking little or no effort to ensure that our young people particularly are put to useful work. But at the same time, we are told to review the Bail Act and to change the Constitution and to interfere with the Charter of Rights. No way. No way. That's fascist behavior, and those who put it forward are of that character. So let's get it clear, you see. Work is the answer to the lifting up of human personality, not imprisonment. That is the last resort. And if you embed that in the system where even before a person is tried, just on the basis of an accusation, they are imprisoned for indefinite periods, then you are no friend of democracy. You're an enemy to the Constitution. Let's get that perfectly clear. Bridge Nation, stand by me. Argue with me if you must. And that's what officials in this country now are hinting at, and they're hinting it because it is the conviction that that is the way to go, must go deep, is deep in their heart. This is not a totalitarian state. This is not an authoritarian state. This is a democratic state where we're trying hard to remove the elements that are contrary to and opposing to democracy and freedom in this land. You can't murder. Martin Luther King said that, and he was right. It's 11 minutes after 11 o'clock in Jamaica. So we are told by the person who is in charge of reforming the Constitution that there's going to be some committee that is set up. I stand with those who say we talked that one through already. Yeah? We know what we want to do. We want to respectfully become a republic rather than fall under Queen Elizabeth anymore. Yeah? And secondly, we need to adjust ourselves so that we adhere to the Caribbean Court of Appeal, and we need to make some other changes in our constitutional arrangements that are appropriate to our 60th year anniversary of independence, and we want to underline and restore and strengthen our freedoms. And to say that does not mean that we are in favor of anybody taking anybody else's life. Quite the contrary. Yes, so don't caricature it at all. That's the same thing that Mr. Smith of the Jamaica Teachers Association, he creates a false question that the teacher must take lick. Oh no, so you have to fight back. That's not the issue. There are mechanisms within the schools, as he well knows. Where's the Dean of Discipline? Where's the Guidance Council? Where is the principal fainting in that situation in order to be able to defuse what eventually turned out into this ugly melee, right, in that particular classroom. And this is just emblematic, unfortunately, of the dilemmas and the wrong attitudes that are so much at play in our midst. Okay? Softness is not what we're talking about. We're talking about being constructive rather than to add to destructive behavioral patterns. There you go. All right. Prime Minister Holness has gone to the Summit of the Americas in the United States, and I intend to discuss this with Irwine Clare when we link up with him later. What's happening at the Summit of the Americas? Several leaders are not attending, notably many of the Central American leaders, Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, and others, I believe. And some in the Caribbean will not go. Our Prime Minister gone. Yeah. Well, we know where he stands. Uh, Sir Alexander Bustamante said, we stand with the West. Yeah, we stand with the West insofar as supporting democratic ideals are concerned. In what way are democratic ideals advanced? In what way is democracy uplifted? Are those who have aberration from it convinced otherwise? When in a summit of the Americas, you leave out three of the nations that you don't like their politics, but you decide that they can't be part of the Americas anymore. Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua. I don't have any defense to make for many of the things that go on in those countries, but you can't have a summit of the Americas and decide that you're going to leave out significant portions of the Americas. That is a contradiction in terms. It becomes a meeting which is designed for prosecuting your private ends rather than the affairs of the nation. So Jamaica looking to suck up back to Venezuela in order to get oil. Now that things gone so high, right? Gas, you soon hear tomorrow that gas gone up another $4.50, you know. Or you're going to hear that it gone down by 25 cents. Who the hell do you think is being fooled by these antics? All right? So let us make sure that we do it right. And we need the contact with the whole of the Americas. We have good relationships with Cuba. They help us greatly in our health and education system. So we are neutral when a big country, may I say, a big bully decides that no, we're not talking to you, Cuba, anymore, or at all, ever, and we just go along with that? Really? Is that our principle? Mr. Holdings, what do you stand for? Yes, Marcus Garvey said we were to have backbones, not wishbones. This is the Public Eye on the Bridge 99 FM. When we come back, we have an interesting lady to talk to. Yes, she is making waves and doing things in a different way. Have you ever heard of a breadfruit bulla? Boy, I tell you, there's more when we return. This is the Public Eye. Thanks for being with us on the Public Eye. This is a Bridge 99 FM, broadcasting to the Jamaican diaspora all over the world. Hello, Miss Karlene Johnson. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
And thank you very much for joining us. I'm well, thank you. Anxious to know more about this interesting lady. I hear you come from St. Catherine.
Right in the Kitson region, Biles district to be exact.
I tell you.
So,
and
born and raised.
Good. That's excellent. And still in the countryside. That's interesting. People
Right.
from Kitson Town and other places in Jamaica and country, when they turn big, they usually come to the city. Why you stay in the country, Miss Johnson?
The city is congested. There's a lot of space in the countryside. Why not come down and expand and explore?
Mm-hmm.
So the city is good.
Yes.
The city is where we get to meet a lot of people, an amalgamation of persons and personalities.
Right.
But it's right at home that the inspirations are born. It's right at home where you get your beginnings.
I love that.
So,
Tell me about your company. I hear you have an interesting name for your company. What is it?
it's something country. I wanted something that had a place on names.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
it is multifaceted. It's country as in old school, authentic, back in the day, reminiscent of wholesomeness, country life, but not only that, Jamaican. So Caribbean, Jamaican.
Yes. And
So
what do
something country.
what do you produce?
Well, we are a small bakery as it is now, with the hope of expanding into one of those large conglomerates. But baby steps.
Yes.
So we do a lot of stuff that are based with breadfruit and cassava.
Breadfruit
I have-
and cassava.
Right. So
Okay.
we have different lines. So I have breadfruit oatmeal cookies. That one is in the Shoppers Fair supermarket
Tell me now,
in
breadfruit.
Spanish Town and Portmore.
Good. Breadfruit
breadfruit
oatmeal
oatmeal
cookies. All right.
Right.
No, that
And
is.
we have
Stop on the breadfruit oatmeal cookies for me, Karlene.
okay.
This is oatmeal, which everybody knows, but the base of
Right.
it, instead of being ordinary flour, would be breadfruit.
Breadfruit.
Breadfruit flour.
Initially, I wanted to go into gluten-free foods.
Uh-huh.
Um, Not necessarily that I am gluten intolerant, but I've found that a lot of persons are gluten intolerant. A lot
Yes,
of
that's
persons
true.
are developing allergies, especially as the wheat has been modified so much over time.
Mm-hmm.
So with the modification, then there comes health conditions and things like that. So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons, not the main reason, but one of.
Okay. Now, so the you have to make the bread or acquire the breadfruit flour. How does that go?
All right. So initially, I started. I'm a past teacher. I've left the classroom,
Really?
but while working in the classroom, I met Mike and Mary McLaughlin from Trees That Feed.
Isn't it? We know
And
them well.
right, Mary was singing your praise,
My.
and I was introduced to try and explore breadfruit flour.
Uh-huh.
Now, our grandparents would have known breadfruit flour because I have found that the older generation, they used to use a variety of flours, and each of these flour would have a different nutritive value and add its own benefits. But over time, we have moved away from the traditions. We have moved away from our culture. And if you hear breadfruit flour now, you might think it's an elitist thing, or you might think, that's not something that could taste good or I'd want. So we have moved away from our culture, our roots, and then we have bought into, must say, we have become Americanized in many ways.
Yes.
Maybe through the use of the internet being so prolific and or access to other cultures,
And
we
for
have lost
convenience too,
identity.
Karlene. For convenience, I
Yeah,
mean, breadfruit flour
right,
takes
convenience.
yes takes quite some preparation. Whereas wheat flour, you can go into the same supermarket where your oatmeal cookies are and pick up a bag and go home and make your dumpling.
But the thing about convenience, not everything that comes readily is good for you.
I agree with
And
you.
with life, if you want something good, you'll have to put in the time and the effort.
And there's an issue now
And
of affordability, isn't there?
yes, there is always that affordability
Yes.
um, line.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this: what has happened is that if we don't see the value in something, then we won't invest in it.
Yes.
And if we don't invest in it on a larger scale, then the cost won't go down. And so you will have niche prices, you will have high-end prices. Breadfruit flour right now in the supermarkets, you get it for $900 a pound or in those high ranges. So there's a range, but that's one of the higher
Yes.
end range
Yes.
for the product.
Uh-huh.
Now, if we get people involved and let them find the value of it, the value of the tree, that you don't eat all the breadfruit on your tree.
Yes.
So a tree might produce up to 300 fruits or 200 and maybe 50 fruits for a season.
Yes.
What do you do with the excess?
Feed
You
it.
roast some, you boil some, you fry some, and then the rest goes to the
Feed.
ground.
Go feed a hog.
Right. And how many persons have pigs now?
Exactly. I
That
mean,
again,
there's a
so
lot of
it just
waste.
goes to waste.
Yes.
So, and that's true for breadfruit, but it's true for mangoes. It's true for so many other of our foods.
Yes.
So it just goes to waste. So the idea of using what goes to waste is at the core of what we do here. And the thing is, we are small, so we cannot delve into everything because everything has a cost, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has a cost.
So you mentioned the oatmeal cookies, but I took you off your line because I hear you have other products. I'm dying to taste your breadfruit bulla, Miss Johnson.
Oh, the breadfruit. Yes. So I'll finish the cookies. So we have one that's called Vegan Treat. It's similar to the breadfruit oatmeal cookies, but that one, it has chia seeds, no eggs. So that's one good for the vegans.
Vegan cookie.
Right. So I
Yes.
call it Vegan Treat.
Uh-huh.
So
Vegan
so they
street.
get their breadfruit and all of that. So that one has no regular flour.
Right.
Breadfruit and cassava is its base,
Uh-huh.
and the other things.
All right.
Then we have a pizzelle, which is an Italian waffle type cookie. So a lot of research went into doing these things because we are not in a vacuum. We exist where we learn and we can adapt.
Mm-hmm.
So I explored and found the Italian pizzelle and modified it by using breadfruit and cassava as the base again.
Yes.
So that's a breadfruit pizzelle. And then we have So that those are the cookies, and then we have the bulla. So the breadfruit bulla, while not 100% breadfruit, it is high volume of breadfruit. And
Okay.
what we chose to do is because it's nutrient rich.
Yes.
Breadfruit is nutrient rich and it's dense, so it will cause it to be fuller for longer, and it
Mm-hmm.
gives the body enough time to break down, and
Right.
therefore it releases its energy slowly, so you can go through your day. As a teacher, I noted that a lot of our students, they couldn't grasp things as readily because one, their nutrition was poor,
You're
and a
hungry.
lot of us ignore, yes, nutrition.
Yes.
So if you're hungry, then the energy, because you do need up all the energy for your brain processes to work
Mm-hmm.
properly.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are hungry, then you could tell them as much as you want, you could practice as much as you want. There is going to be a shortfall
Yes.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And nutrition is one of them.
So is this
Now,
what led you to experiment with breadfruit for a bulla?
well, there was a request
Mm-hmm.
for the breadfruit bulla.
Yeah.
Initially, when I came out with the cookies, I had a neighbor and she said to me, cookies are not my thing. I don't like cookies. Do bulla. And she was adamant that I should do bulla. She said, listen to me, Jamaican people love bulla.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, bulla will sell.
Mm-hmm.
I had no interest in bulla. I did
Mm-hmm.
not know how to make bulla. But over time, no, I was approached by Trees That Feed again,
Yes.
and they asked me to develop a bulla
Yes.
for school feeding, a school program.
Well,
And
what is in the bulla, Karlene, before we take the break?
well, I can't give you all
No, I
the
don't want to
secrets.
hear all your secrets.
However, yes,
Uh-huh.
the bulla is high percentage of breadfruit flour,
Uh-huh.
so totally enriched breadfruit flour,
Yes.
and it has ginger, so
Mm.
that traditional
Very
ginger
important.
taste, right? And
Uh-huh.
we try to get that potent ginger from local farmers.
Excellent.
So that's one
Our
of the
ginger
things
is
working with our network,
much stronger than any of the
right?
approaching ginger.
So we need the potency, because if you're going just for the volume with
Right.
the others, you might be using a ton load and still not getting any quality.
Uh-huh.
So we need to get back to our traditional good gingers.
Uh-huh.
I must.
Well, listen,
All right, and
1 second. We're going to take a break for commercial purposes. But you look at this. The teacher of English language and English literature has become a food scientist. Now, that's an interesting process itself. And this is key because this is an age where we're all going to have to wheel and turn again, come again, in order to be able to manage, one profession or one interest is not going to be enough to have us all survive. And the nation is calling us for much, much greater diversity and experimentation. This is interesting stuff. Karlene Johnson, soon come. So we're talking with Karlene Johnson of Something Country in Kitson Town, St. Catherine. She's telling us about some very innovative ideas in some of our popular food products. Karlene, there was somebody had some of your breadfruit bullas over the last weekend up in the mountains where I live, and I begged them a piece, and they wouldn't give me.
you. Oh,
So
they
you
should
have
have
to.
shared.
So you're telling me, and indeed, even as we're speaking, we're getting requests. People are saying, all right, but where can I get this product? Can you tell us that, and then go back to the ingredients?
Okay. The breadfruit bulla right now, it's just been rolled out
Uh-huh.
into the shops. But for most of my products, I am targeting the corner shops. There's
Really?
one that, right.
Uh-huh.
I do have the breadfruit oatmeal cookie in the supermarket.
Yes.
I am thinking about maybe putting the bullet in the supermarket later on.
Good.
But for now, we have the Lasco Chin Foundation. They had a pilot program where they were looking at women entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And they chose 5 ladies who would go and start their own business, and they're using the breadfruit bulla as their main product. So
That.
far, we have had 2 weeks with them on the streets wherever they choose to do their marketing,
Yes.
and it is going well.
Good.
Few of the ladies, they got 50 breadfruit bullets,
Mm-hmm.
and by the evening it was done.
I can
So
imagine.
so we are working, as I said, we're a small space. So what we're doing, we're trying to maximize how best we can cover do the products,
Yes.
because I do other products. So I have a Bami line, and I do gizadas as well.
Really?
So
My goodness.
right.
Something country sell off? That's large. That's wonderful. No, okay. So for the time being, then we have to shop around to get your products. But
Or
we're
you can call me directly and we will make arrangements.
okay. Do you mind giving us a contact, whether it's electronic
It's
or direct?
488
488.
3971,
Say that
and that
again.
is my
Four.
488
Mm-hmm.
3971.
71.
Or
Good.
you can contact me via email as well. It's somethingcountryja
Mm-hmm.
at gmail.com.
That's easy. Something countryja@gmail.com.
Right.
Well, good. Now, so tell us now, the breadfruit. Do you depend upon suppliers for your breadfruit flour, or do you produce your own? I know that
It's a mix.
trees that
It's a
feed.
mix.
Mm-hmm. Tell us.
So in Jamaica, as it is, there are few persons who are in the commercial production of breadfruit flour. So you
Yes.
have Jeffreytown Farmers Association, and you have one close to us down by near GC Foster.
Uh huh.
I'm not remembering the name of it
That's okay.
readily. However, you do have persons who have gone into the production, but some have, I don't know, maybe due to the challenge of securing the flour or the challenge of processing, some have scaled back.
Yes.
So, and as I said, some of the challenge is that with the production on a small scale, then the price might be high. You know, the economy of the
Economy of
small
scale is important. Yes.
right. So, um, in terms of getting all my flour from outside sources, no, I have to make my own too for some of my products.
Yes.
But what I would love to see is groups that would do it, and then I could purchase. And then that would give me more time to
To process.
focus on what it's on the end
To
product.
manufacture, sure.
Right.
I long for a situation where you can find a grove of, or several groves of 20, 30, 50, 100 acres of breadfruit, because I believe that if that we're facing, Colin, a world crisis. Wheat flour is going to become more and more expensive with what is happening in Ukraine and the Soviet Union.
Right.
Other countries are conserving. And in any event, for health, for nutritional reasons, related health reasons, and economic reasons, we need to support the expansion of our tree crop industries, and breadfruit is the obvious one. Mac and Mary McLaughlin Trees That Feed are onto a great thing. They ought to be. Well, we need to amplify what their initiative has really brought. Now, you're doing this in a short way, a small way, but we have to bring that up to scale, don't we?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would say that my contribution to the spreading of trees and to the agricultural sector overall is not necessarily small, because if we plant the trees and there is no outlet for the fruit or for the product to go anywhere, then we are going to ignore those trees.
Sure.
So the economy has to continue. So
Mm-hmm.
what I think, and education is always key, is we need to educate our people about the value of what is around us. So the value of the tree that you have in your yard, though we may not have the orchards yet, but trees are available, and if you have land, you can always contact the Trees That Feed Foundation or other organizations that can link you with getting trees. Then you can always put in the orchards. But what about the trees that are already
Sure,
existing?
you're right.
These need to be charted, these need to be utilized.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we maximize on what we already have, then we put in more and get the world to know about what we have and to value what we have.
Well, I'm thinking of the people in the diaspora who are listening to this program. As you may have been told, this station is particularly devoted to conveying Jamaica to our lovers and our citizens everywhere. And they would be willing and interested to try your products. And therefore, you need to be strengthened and enlarged, you and others. Tell me, is there is producing breadfruit flour, cassava flour? Is it difficult process? How can you
What
describe
I would
it a
say
little?
is that it has it has several steps,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in order to produce the volume, then you need to have the capacity to produce it as well.
Yes.
Because basic production of our flour, because we do not really do any extraction from it to say we have taken out this nutrient or whatever. We basically do purification of the fruits, shredding, drying, grinding. So that's the basic flow for the flour.
Can any
So
breadfruit produce usable flour, or are there particular varieties that are better?
the variety doesn't matter, but what
Look
is
at
that
that.
certain fitness where the latex isn't as high and where you have the development of the sweetness that you want and the
Mm-hmm.
starch content.
Good.
So the variety, it doesn't matter.
So.
That's one of the things when we were doing it, we tried to approach the persons who had trees.
Mm-hmm.
And we said to them, if you even bring the smaller fruits, because at the time I was purchasing by poundage.
Uh-huh.
No, that was another thing that a lot of people were not used to. But
Yeah.
I'm saying to them, if you're going to do volume, then we cannot be counting 2,000 breadfruits individually. We
Yes.
have to find a method that works.
Mm-hmm.
And weighing was one of those.
Yes. So tell me now, where will something country be in 5 years' time? What's your dream?
Well, my dream is to create employment. One, that's at the top of my list. Two, to continue producing quality products. I know that there is a trend. You start well, and then over time, to reduce costs, then you will just minus your quality until you are left with a semblance of what you had before. But that's not my aim. I hope to maintain quality.
Yes.
And not only that, what I want is for it to be a household name. So if you have a pantry, there is something country in there.
Great.
So you grab a snack, you grab a bami, you grab something, and it's from something country. So it should be synonymous with Jamaica.
What's the prospect for Bami and Gizada, miss?
Well, bami, I have three types of bami so far. I have the regular bami, cassava bami. I have a spicy bami, and I have a coconut bami.
Really?
Persons have been asking for breadfruit bami, but I only made that once and haven't worked on that recipe since.
Boy, I didn't know that that breadfruit could make bami at all. But that's very, very interesting. We need a tour of a visual tour of your factory so we can understand that. What when you say a spice bami, what you spice it with? Can you tell us?
Okay, it's spiced with cayenne peppers, and it's spicy.
Yes,
so
that's nice.
Spicy, although we do have a milder spice.
So
for those who can't handle peppers and onions, and it has in onions and celery.
Whoa, that's a nice blend
can
of
be
flavors.
had by itself.
Yes.
Because what I want, what the thing is, we want to move away from the traditions where we have our foods in boxes, or in check boxes. So it's bami, I must have fish. No.
Yeah.
If you want bami, go have bami.
Yes.
You can have it by itself.
Once the taste is attractive.
Right. So that's the whole concept. Looking at food and not having to be boxed in. So you have green bananas and you think that it must only be boiled and you can't do anything else with it or make porridge. Yeah. No, we need to expand. And that's something, a lot of the things that we have around us and we term as bush or we term as weed, they are highly nutritious, and we need to get into the habit of exploring new things.
Yes. Well, I agree with that. That is the way that we are going to become prosperous in this country and wholesome. It's not by continuing to the seductive but now unaffordable lines of importation of every striking thing we need, Karlene. We are going to have to multiply you, clone you all over Jamaica. How did the teacher of language become a food scientist, Miss? Who taught you?
I
Where
had
you went?
nowhere. I stayed home.
Uh-huh.
My mother had studied home economics
Yeah.
at what you'd call it, one of those lower levels.
Yeah.
However, she always would do cakes,
Uh-huh.
so puddings and cakes and gizadas until she left gizada to me. She's like, "You make it better than me," so that's it.
Yeah.
So that's how gizadas came in. But I was always in a tree when I was young, kind of more of an introvert. So I would be up in a tree reading a book.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I took my books up into the trees. And some of those trees would be the tambourine tree,
Yes.
the mango tree.
Yes.
And I was looking, what do I make from all these tambourines? Because I can only eat so much and no more. And then pray that it's not stew peas when you come down, because tambourine and stew peas just doesn't
No,
work off
no,
the tongue.
trouble.
So, yes, so I made stews, tambourine stews. I made balls. I attempted wines. So all of that was at the age of 12, 9, 12,
Yes.
in teenage years.
But then
And
you're
dabbled with mangoes,
uh-huh.
tried to make sorbets, made
Yes.
different preserves. So it was always, my kitchen experience was never to go cook yam and banana and dumpling. No.
Yes.
My thing, if I'm going in the kitchen, I'm going to try and make something.
No, this is very
And
interesting, and it's so instructive for other people to, in their own way, to try and follow. There'll be many failures. I'm sure you could tell me of the many experiments you
oh
tried that didn't
Lord,
turn out, but some have. Tell me though, are you making money?
not as yet. It's at the stage where I have to be adding.
Mm-hmm.
So there's demand, yes. There is supply going out,
Yeah.
but then there's also have to be augmentation
I
of
imagine you
what
have
I
the
have.
capital and so on, and
Right.
you have to do a
And
lot of
what I
that.
did, I didn't seek any. It was all personal starting this,
Great.
so it was my savings.
Uh-huh.
So I took a personal loan
Uh-huh.
for which this business now has to ramp
To
up in
service.
order to service those
Sure.
loans,
Yes.
right? But I took the risk.
Yes.
I took the risk
And it's going to pay
because
off.
one of the things, if you do not have any faith in
Yes.
what you're doing, then you won't take risks, and then it will always remain an idea.
Who has had faith in
So,
you then, Karlene Johnson? Who has helped you?
oh, I've had help. I have had help, and some of the help might not have been monetary,
Mm-hmm.
but I am eternally grateful for some of the help. My family members, I have to put them on the top of the list. My brother, Andrew Johnson, and my father, they are two of the pivotal ones in
Good.
this process.
Yes.
My father gave me the use of the back of his house, so I added on my bakery
Uh-huh.
at home. And my brother has been instrumental in servicing my machines, in designing and making my machines. Daddy has been helpful in building even stoves and stuff for me.
Really?
So,
This is
right,
this is
they have a
all.
technical
Let
background.
me remind people, this is all in the Kitson Town area of St. Catherine. This is not in some Silicon Valley anywhere in Jamaica or anywhere else. And this is burgeoning into something which is nutritious, economical, and which is quintessentially Jamaican. My, that's very good, you know. That's what we need.
What I'll say to a lot of people is that, all right, you are going to attempt to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you start researching, because research is at the root of everything in it.
Sure.
So it takes hours, sometimes nights and days, and a lot of time to delve into. So you might have an idea, but how do you execute this idea? What's the best way? Can I find something more economical than what I'm seeing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think I can say is a given thing for me because of how I've grown. My father is a mechanic. My mother, she was, because she's no longer with us, she was industrious, using everything around her to create. And so all of us, six of us, all
Mm-hmm.
six of us learned how to use what we have.
Yes.
So you say they take
You turn
whatever
your
and
hand
make
and make
fashion.
fashion. Yes.
Yes, you turn around and make fashion.
Yes.
So even the construction of my bakery, I went to the scrap heap and I spoke to the gentleman who runs it. And I'm eternally grateful to him, Mr. Raymond Sibbles
Mm-hmm.
in Kingston. He was one of them that he had faith in me, because sometimes I went, I had no money, and I would say to him, that piece of equipment is mine. I do not have the money, but it is mine. I will be back when I have the money.
I
Do
love your
not sell it.
spirit. Bridge Nation, you hear the girl? That's what it takes. And this is the way in which major corporate entities, empires, may I use that term, are built. What you do is you have the vision and you have the zeal and you keep going. And you may buck your toe plenty times, but you keep going, eh?
Right.
Yes.
It is true. So looking at the resources you have, that's
Mm-hmm.
how I've found it possible to even do what I do. So if it wasn't for that, I went into daddy's garage and I saw some pieces of iron, and I saw what I wanted out of it, and I took them up and I dragged them over myself. And I put them where I wanted them, and I said, do not touch that. That's for X and Y. And my cousin, Ian Wilson, he he's a body, he works on vehicles,
Body
body work.
run. Mm-hmm.
And he came and he welded up my structure, because I got pieces of containers. I couldn't afford an entire container, so I got pieces
Yes.
and I built the building.
Uh-uh.
So, as I said, using things that, and persons come and say, how did you do this? And I won't tell them what I did it for, because they won't believe me. Because, as I said, I have found that a lot of people, if it's not shiny and out of a new brand package,
Yes.
then it has no
Now
value.
look at that. That's
And
a mentality and yours is so different. Tell me, you mentioned Trees That Feed. I have great admiration for them. How have they helped you? What kind of inspiration have they shared?
oh, Mike and Mary they have been wonderful. One, I'll put this on the top of the list. I don't know if they would arrange it like I will arrange it, but just speaking with them and hearing, Karlene, you're doing well. Continue. Don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
I put that as number one on
Look
the
at that.
support
Yes, sure.
that I have gotten from them.
Uh huh.
Because there are days I feel like I shouldn't have left the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
There are days I do not know what I'm doing here, but that level of support, yes, it has propelled me.
Yes.
And two, networking. You cannot underestimate the power of network. You cannot buy network. And I thank them for introducing me to a number of marvelous people
Mm-hmm.
that have helped to push forward the the whole idea. If not, then it would still be a concept in my mind. So I thank them.
No, that's
So
great.
they have purchased also Trees That Feed. They have donated. Um, they're one of the biggest sponsors with the breadfruit bullers,
Mm-hmm.
and they are sponsoring some local schools. And one of them is the Crystal House
Oh
in
yes, in
Spanish Town,
sure.
right beside Twickenham
Central
Park.
Village, Twickenham
Right
Park.
at Twickenham Park beside Jose Marti
Right.
High School. And so they are basically giving these children the bullers as a part of nutrition, and helping them to understand the value also of the trees,
Yes.
because
No,
they are
that's
getting the
excellent.
end product,
Yes. Sure.
right?
No, no,
So
I'm
you're seeing the circle. You're seeing the
yes,
circle
I
from
am.
the earth, putting in the trees, coming right back around economy even, and to health and education.
the state, the government, whichever government, has for a long time been promoting small businesses and entrepreneurship and agro-processing, etc. I was listening to some of the advertisements for the so-called cheap finance when I was coming here today. Have they beaten a track to your door? Do you want their help?
What should I say?
Be truthful.
Maybe the track has been cut somewhere. But the thing is, a lot of who I'm getting the track,
Yes.
or they're beating the way to my door are persons who maybe want to do sales and marketing. But as I have been saying to a lot of persons, right now it's not the sales and marketing that's the main issue for me. It is the supply and production section.
Yes.
Just recently, somebody called. They wanted an order of 4,800 bammies in a week, and I was not at the capacity to produce that.
Yes.
Namely, one, because the farmers that supply me, I need a larger network of farmers who are doing cassava. Now, over time, I don't know, maybe due to COVID, COVID is one of the main factors. A lot of the factories that used to use cassava, they were closed. And so the farmers were left with the product in the field and they lost them. So persons did not really go back into any large scale production of cassava. Right now, cassava production is down. So if you go to some of the farmers, you'll hear that it is young. Cassava is young, not yet ready.
Yes.
And here I am with an order,
yes.
Maybe the first order, because this is somebody who will want on a regular basis. 4,800 as the first order. And I had to turn it down. Not only that, so I definitely need to have a reliable supply.
Listen, let me be very direct, Karlene Johnson, and to our listeners. When I was coming here today, I was listening to an outside broadcast, which this station is participating in, for tourism linkages. What could be more of an appropriate tourism linkage than to provide our tourists with the best Jamaican recipes and experiments and food made of coconut, cassava, breadfruit? Yes? This is the kind of thing that makes a difference, you know. This is something that you could say to people, come now, I want to share in this for a remarkable culinary experience. Now, nobody vexed, but please let us understand that you can chat all you want, but it means that somebody like Karlene has to be brought up to scale in a way that makes sense for her and doesn't preempt anything she's doing, but gets it there pretty soon, because otherwise we're missing the boat, aren't we?
And that's another thing, scaling.
Yes.
I had at the core of my mind, not wanting to be really a niche product. Because a lot of times when you hear of breadfruit or things being made, it's a niche and it's only accessed by those who have cash. And, so because I was in the classroom and because I know the majority of our students, they might eat a large meal, but the meal is not giving them the
it's nutrition deficient.
Right. So I was saying that I want my products to be affordable.
Yes.
Now, even if I want it to be affordable, it's going to be driven by the costs that come in.
Sure.
So the raw material costs and production costs and all of that is going to drive it.
Yeah.
Now, electricity costs, all of those.
Sure.
So when you look at it, yes, it's good to go into business, but then some of the factors seem very unfavorable.
Well, listen to me. Whatever it takes, you have to succeed. Karlene Johnson, what an entertaining interview. What a good prospect for your future, for the nation's future. Thank you so much. We're going to follow Something Country. Plenty of people going to call you on 488-3971, 876, of course, in front of them, or somethingcountryja@gmail.com. Really happy for this interview. Keep in touch with us. We will with you on the Bridge 99. Bye for now.
Bye.
Well, wasn't that wonderful? Let's take the break. That's what we do in the public eye, That's a positive side of what's happening in Jamaica. Too many other things not so right. But we'll tell you more. Stay tuned. Thanks very much for joining us on the Public Eye on the Bridge. We remind you of the phone numbers 876-551-5782 and the studio line 876-676-4996. Let me remind you of the connections with Karlene Johnson and Something Country, who we interviewed in the first segment of this program. Her number is 876-4888-3971. And somethingcountryja@gmail.com connects you with her. Call her to see how you can understand what she's doing, how you can help her, perhaps how you can access some of her products, the cookies, the breadfruit bulla, the gizadas and the bamis. Yeah, exactly what we need to be doing in Jamaica to build up our own production, to improve our nutrition, and to be able to have that which we need to export to our Jamaican diaspora. We make sure that we satisfy the needs of the diaspora in their food requirements. Is he there? Is Irwine there? Hi, Irwine.
Hi, good day, sir. How are you?
Well, thank you. Hope all things are well on your end, too.
Of course. So, as you would say, wagwana yard.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, the good thing is I just had a very interesting discussion with Karlene Johnson, a Jamaican teacher who has left the classroom, educated herself in food science, and is now beginning to make waves with breadfruit oatmeal cookies, with breadfruit bulla, with gizadas, and with bami. And
my lord.
No, listen to me. And from all reports, quality products done on her own in her kitchen, extended kitchen at Kitson Town in St. Catherine. Yes, good can come out of Nazareth, Irwine Clare. And indeed, this is the way in which she, using her experience of malnutrition in the schoolroom, has decided that she's going to build a career. Hopefully one day, let's dream, enough to export to Europe, Caribbean and Jamaican food establishments in the United States, help to feed school picnic in Jamaica, yes, the absence of which is causing a lot of the mayhem in the classrooms that you've been hearing about, yeah, and making a move with local products. As she says, her zeal is not to waste anything. Yes? Indeed. So take the Jamaican plenty and make it into something which is a product of excellence. I know that we stand for, big man.
Indeed, and what's interesting in that is that we also, through these type of connections, have the opportunity hearing such a story, and I hope we do have the opportunity to have her on our local side here, because why I say that is from a duality of purposes here. One is that we laud such endeavors, and these are type of endeavors that elicits and attract persons to participate not only as consumers, but hey, we may have persons willing to invest in what she's doing. This is how we build out our relationships. When we talk about diaspora engagements, these are the samples and these are the things that make it relevant to the average person on the street, so we can engender this process to bear fruit.
She was telling me she does a spice bami, Irwine, which you can eat by yourself. You don't have to put it with any fish. If you like it with fish, have it. But eat bami, a gizada. Hey, listen, I saw a feature on, I think it was BBC recently, where they're saying that Alzheimer's disease, that dreaded disease, for which there is no cure. This was actually a medical scientist in America whose husband was afflicted with Alzheimer's, and she gave him pure coconut oil, yes, and it slowed down the process and in fact showed signs of reversing the process of mental decay. Now look here. We are fooling around the redevelopment of our coconut industry. Yes, and this is just one possibility. There are so many others. This place is a gold mine. It is a lodestar of what can be for our people and for the service we can offer to you people abroad and more generally, sir.
Indeed, and these are the type of products, especially now, that we crave for.
Yeah. And
when we speak of food security and looking for alternatives and making sure that they are essential to our bodies, and as I said, homegrown, and provides an economic opportunities for many who are so challenged in our society. And just to hear of that story, it sends another message here to Ronnie, and that is, It creates the environment for farming being sexy. What do I mean by that? We always relegate farming to the non-challenge academical, the person who wakes up early in the morning and till the soil and that's it. But there are opportunities for young professionals to get involved and not only put in the add value to this thing and make it an experience for others to follow.
I agree, and this is a money-making venture, provided it's properly managed, provided it has people with the zeal and the penchant for research that Karlene Johnson showed. And interestingly, confirming the diaspora connection, Irwine, she credits a lot of her inspiration and networking assistance with Mike and Mary McLaughlin of Trees That Feed Foundation, which is an Illinois-based non-government organization which is devoted to spreading new varieties of breadfruit throughout the Caribbean. Now, this is the kind of relationship that we want to have. It is a constructive relationship, not an exploitative relationship. Okay, where the advances in the United States, for example, are put to the purposes of developing, not exploiting, developing the industry, agriculture, agro-processing in Jamaica. Now that we want, sir.
So when we speak,
love that.
when we speak of building out
right.
our industries and building out opportunities, this is homegrown, and I think again I go back. This is where the relationships are now brought to fore.
Clearly.
Because opportunities are there for not just us to be consumers, but to be at the ground level in participating in an entrepreneurial way. Well, and that's what I might take away from that.
Well, if we could multiply this, as I think we can, what a difference it could make to the livity of the country, to the economic prospects at a time when we are in so much jeopardy. I got to relate it though to other things. Headline Indeed. Of the Gleaner this morning, Irwine Clare, for your listeners: missing million. What is million? Who is million? Million is a little 5-year-old girl who is separated from her mother, who is now in custody on the Mexican-U.S. border because she was trying to smuggle herself and her 2 children into the United States. And while they had to run, she says, obviously from the Border Patrol people, and she get catch, and she's separated from her 5-year-old daughter, and nobody knows where she is. There's a picture of a heartbroken grandfather of the little girl. Her name is Malaysia Miller. Yeah, apparently some people suspect that she got drowned crossing, what is it, the Rio Grande or some river that you have to cross.
Oh my God.
No, Irwine Clare, why we have to do this, man? What is there in this country? What about our relations with the United States? Mr. Holness hitched up himself in Los Angeles today. Yes. What is it that is so deficient of us here and our relationships, our shared humanity with people like Uno, that this kind of tragedy can take place? Tell me another thing before you talk, Mr. Clare, because the next item in the Gleaner is that the rifles among 5-gun seizure in Salt Spring. St. James was supposed to have so much zozo that it was quieting down. More murder go on there, and they pick up 3 AR-15 rifles and 2 Smith & Wesson handguns, which off the streets in St. James yesterday, which they say just come out of the plastic. Where send gun for? And when our people are dead crossing the border, we have to do something about our relationships. I wonder if that is what Mr. Holness are going to talk about in Los Angeles, Mr. Clare.
Well, one of the subject matter on the Conference of the Americas there in Los Angeles, as you know, which is one of the bastions for persons from South Latin America, is climate change and migration and the impact it is having on the United States borders in that region. And the fact that the plight of persons to get to the United States is still rife. And child smuggling, of course, is a major concern there. As well as the repatriation in this case. I'll say what comes back to Jamaica in this case, guns and drugs.
Sure.
And so I have to imagine that the insistence on our leader or prime minister to be at this conference is because these are the issues that will be brought forth.
Well, I really hope so.
Because these are there.
Yeah,
these are there.
Okay, and let's give kudos. The reports that we have here, which you have probably followed too, is that Vice President Harris has been able to mobilize promises of over $3 billion of investment in Latin America, Central America, and I think it said Latin America too. It didn't mention the Caribbean, but we're usually associated in measures in investment capital, which will hopefully stanch the flow of people like Million's mother, who pays a small, who goes to, leave Jamaica, go to Mexico, find herself up there, probably walk for days, find herself on the border, now find herself in jail, and lost her daughter. Oh my God, man! So
it tells it. What does that say? What does that say about us as a nation?
This is the point I'm making.
Because that's what it comes back to.
Yeah. So you can tell me about the economy is rebounding and how you're going to give the PNP a life sentence and all of that crap. And this is what is happening. Guns are flowing to the country, and the most you can do is to say you're going to change the Charter of Rights. And then and your people are voting with their feet to their own detriment and God forbid their death. What is that, man? You have a disordered situation. You don't understand. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about all of us, but I'm particularly talking about the state. And I'm yearning for a new kind of understanding of humanity and of relationship between the U.S. and Jamaica. And if Los Angeles doesn't produce that, we don't know what it's good for.
Well, you see, I think, to give the PM a benefit of the doubt here and some hope that in going to this conference, he's able to engage and have dialogue at the table. Obviously, my concern and my major concern is that I don't get the sense that CARICOM is being represented. There's a block. And why I say that, ladies and gentlemen, is that Jamaica by itself, Trinidad by itself, in conferences like these, many times, Ronnie, don't really make any sense. All right, and when I say don't really make any sense, may make the kind of impact that we'd want it to make.
But CARICOM is divided, Irwin.
And that's a challenge I have here, and that's a challenge I have, and the concerns as to whether or not what will be the true benefits, because we can only extrapolate benefits when we go there as a force. And even speaking so, it's a small force too, because we're not talking about a significant population in relation to the other countries that are turning up the table. And there's significance to the geopolitics of this particular time with these United States. So again here, I hope that something, as I would say, Ronnie, trickles down and we get something.
I gather we're to take a break at this time for usual commercial observances. Irwine Clare, this is a Global Connection, the Bridge 99 FM in Jamaica with Irie Jam in New York. There's so much more to talk about. We'll be back.
Welcome back, Ronnie.
Thanks very much. I hear you have a guest.
Yes, yeah. The whole Conference of America, Ronnie, is very important. And I think there are some pointers that we want to draw out, because we must not forget too that there is an overshadowing elephant here, in that at this Conference of the Americas, which puts together Central, Latin, North, South, all those folks, countries in Los Angeles at this time, hosted by the United States. Yes, it's a critical conference. And the exception, though, is that the United States have not invited countries like, I think, Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela, which is causing consternation, where we now see the president of Mexico have decided and publicly rebuked the president for not inviting them.
Mexico,
but I feel,
El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala,
Yes.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Grenadines, yes, among others. No, there's some geopolitics here operating, Ronnie, because one would say, why would the United States be so vigilant in this manner? And I wanted to call on a gentleman who I know can put some things in perspective, because I have an idea, and I want him to probably give me an academic mark on this if I'm making sense here. But let's welcome Professor Basil Wilson to our conversation here, former provost of John Jay, and indeed a former president too, acting president of York College in New York, among other accolades. And he went to Kingston College. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Reverend Thwaites. Good afternoon,
Prof. Basil
Speaker of the House, former Speaker of the House.
No, Purnell is attending a relative's graduation in your jurisdiction, so he unfortunately he's not with us today. But next week, don't worry, we'll hear the full story,
Full song.
Basil Wilson, Irwine Clare, what right and what moral justification does the United States, with the greatest of respect, have to tell anybody about democratic principles right now?
I think Biden has embarked on a foreign policy that takes us back to the Cold War. He's really pushing a sort of binary notion of a worldview where it's autocracy versus democracy. And there's some truth in that, but at the same time that he's really excluding Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba from this summit, he's in the process of going to Saudi Arabia to meet with MBS, who has been, in fact, instrumental
murderer
in the murder of Khashoggi.
He's a murderer.
Yeah, so you have this contradiction.
Yeah.
Where you are adamant about countries that are not democratic, but yet still you are having this alliance with Saudi Arabia because of national security interests.
And then to hold on a second and just...
I think one of the distinctions that should have been made is whether these countries are expansionists or not. They're not like Russia that has invaded the Ukraine. Cuba has done some worthwhile things within the Americas in terms of medical benefits, in terms of their initiatives, in terms of teachers, etc. And even recently they were trying to establish a rapprochement with Maduro in order to increase the amount of oil coming from Venezuela.
Basil Wilson, hold on a minute. The Inter-American Development Bank did a study recently about trust and pointed out that in Latin America and the Caribbean, the levels of trust are the lowest in the world. Look at Jamaica's position. Our health services would be significantly compromised, some would say collapsed, if the Cuban personnel were to be withdrawn. Our prospects for fossil fuels in the near future, as in the past, will be considerably enhanced if we have access to Venezuelan oil. What will we say to the Cubans and to the Venezuelans when, by our action, we have gone to sit down in a meeting where they have been systematically excluded, and when they are supposed to be part of one regional family? The hypocrisy, the opportunism is so blatant that it speaks to the mistrust which in fact is a cancer of our polity at the present time. Where am I wrong?
I think that's really, quite correct in the sense that it shows you the unsophisticated nature of American foreign policy, and its refusal to understand the complexities of what is taking place in the region. For example, America has, in fact, in recent decades, neglected the Western Hemisphere. It has more been preoccupied with the Middle East, with Afghanistan, with other areas of the world, rather than with the Western Hemisphere. Well, the president is supposed to give a keynote address this evening, at least tonight, regarding his new initiatives having to do with the Western Hemisphere. There's no question that some years ago there was talk of expanding a free trade area in the Americas, I think that some years ago they introduced CAFTA, from which I think the Dominican Republic has benefited in terms of their economic expansion. I think CARICOM would definitely benefit from being included in a free trade area that encompasses North America. So these are the things that we should, in fact, be arguing for in terms of our diplomacy, rather than just kowtowing to the United States diktat.
Well, let me ask you this, gentlemen. There's another part to it, and I want to call it where I say all politics are local. The whole situation of, and I bring back in Cuba and Venezuela. I bring those two back in because they're powerful countries as it relates to their nationals and the way politics is now in the United States. The head of the foreign relations on the Senate side is Senator Menendez. We all know his hard, steadfast as it relates to Cuba and Venezuela. The same thing from Rubio. And there are those who will say, Professor, that recognizing the impact of those groups in the United States at this time is part of the whole local politics being played here. How does that work through this, considering that the conference is being held in Los Angeles, California, the home for so many Hispanics in the United States? How does that play out here?
Well, you also have Gregory Meeks, who's chair of the Foreign Relations Committee in the House of Representatives, and is an African-American, and who is in a district where there are predominantly significant numbers of Caribbean folks. I think, Menendez, again, has to do with his Cuban roots. You have Rubio, you have Ted Cruz, who also have very strong Cuban roots. And in fact, there's no question that Obama's attempts to establish a rapprochement in Cuba has affected the politics in Florida, especially in terms of presidential politics. And that's one thing that you have found is that even Venezuelans who have fled to Florida, Nicaraguans who have fled to Florida, Cubans who are constitute a sizable presence in Florida, it has shifted in some respects from Florida being a toss-up state to it becoming something of a red-oriented state. So there's no question that those have been factors. But, the President of the United States has to see the world in much larger terms and not just in terms of excluding Cuba, Nicaragua, or Venezuela. I mean, there are other crises within the world. Take, for example, climate change. There's nothing more important for the future of humankind than dealing with climate change. And I think by just dividing the world into democracy versus autocracy, you tend to make it much more difficult to have a united force in really tackling seriously the problem of climate change. And especially when you look at the Caribbean, there's no question that being an island surrounded by sea, that elevations of seawater really constitute a serious threat to the well-being of those countries. So climate change is something terribly critical to us, and rather than focusing on that, we seem to be focusing on the wrong things.
Well, okay, so but let's balance it as we were saying before you came on, Basil. If it's real that Vice President Harris has been able to mobilize over $3 billion worth of investment for Latin and Central America, that's a good show. That's a good start, or good continuation of the effort to dissuade migration. My shock this morning is that Jamaicans now seem to be doing or accelerating. They always were doing it, accelerating their trek to Central America and their pilgrimage up and beyond the Rio Grande, if they can make it, even to the death of probably some of the people. What a sad situation, sir.
Yeah, that was quite tragic in terms of what the Greener reported this morning. In terms of this 5-year-old, who has been separated from her mother, and it represents a certain desperation. And this is why, when we think of economic development, we've got to think in terms of transformational development, not just in terms of the diaspora having an impact on Jamaica's economy. We've got to think in terms of globalization, finding niches in terms of the world market, whether we become part of the supply chains, whether we find ways to bring down multinational corporations and really have a far more profound transformational impact on our economic development. And I don't think we're thinking in those terms. For example, when you take the approach to economic development, we have a scientific research council, we have research institutes at the University of the West Indies, we have a business community, we have the Planning Institute of Jamaica. But those entities are not linked up and are studying what can be the niches that can be established in terms of taking advantage of our juxtaposition to the United States and really taking advantage of globalization. We really have this sort of petty bourgeois approach that doesn't really lead to any kind of economic transformation, but it just leads more to continuity. And we need to think in far more ways that can really bring about a fundamental change in absorbing our surplus labor problem within Jamaican society.
Well, I want to really, really endorse what you've said, but the ideological fix of the Caribbean in relation to the United States does not lead to that. What we gather is that from Trump through to Biden, the United States is saying to the Caribbean territories, know your place, sit down and try your best, but don't do anything that irritates us.
But, CARICOM can be a force in terms of if they function as a united force. What has happened to CARICOM in recent years is that it has become a divided entity, and so therefore it has lost much of its clout. Yeah. And I think that, and that's because, individually we're trying to ingratiate ourselves to the United States rather than seeing CARICOM as a bloc, as a regional force that can begin to explore certain diplomatic breakthroughs, whether it's in terms of migration, whether it's in terms of economic development, whether it is in terms of free trade areas. But none of that has really taken place because sometimes the intellectual prowess is just not there.
Let me turn it back to you gentlemen, though, Irwine Clare, Basil Wilson. Sadly...
Before you go to that point, Ronnie, Prof, you mentioned individualism here because if you recall, during the Trump administration, we still had breakaway factions of CARICOM leaders who met with the president then without operating under the closure of a CARICOM delegation. We still see the same situation. It's a continued MO here. And even in some cases, the same prime ministers making their individualistic approach to this administration. So I'm not certain that the administrations of the United States take CARICOM seriously. If this is a continued approach,
what do we have to show for it? We made this vote in the OAS to isolate Venezuela, and what have we gotten for it? If you're going to play ball and you're going to be that subservient, then what can you show for it? And what people do is that they take you for granted, and that they don't take you seriously.
So hold on now. In Los Angeles, Mr. Juan Guaido is still being promoted as being the legitimate president of Venezuela. And who?
I don't think that Venezuela is just not invited.
No. But these you're sitting down with countries who have recognized this imposter, who know. What are you suggesting? That Fulgencio Batista is somehow his spirit is still alive in Cuba? What the crap is this, man?
For some he is. For some he is. But gentlemen, again though, before we wrap up this segment here, Professor Wilson, what do you see are the benefits coming out of this conference for the Caribbean region? Potential.
Well, I mean, a conference of this kind should be a dialogue that is opened up, that deals not only with national security or national economic interests vis-a-vis the United States, but also the regional interests of the Western Hemisphere, including CARICOM, including Caribbean countries. And so therefore Caribbean countries must develop a vision of what is it wants in terms of its relationship to the United States. What are the burning interests? And in fact, that is something that can also be articulated by the diaspora. But the diaspora sometimes becomes so preoccupied with things that they cannot accomplish, and that we keep spinning our wheels, rather than let's say looking at what is the role that the diaspora can play that would make a big difference in the economic development of the of the Caribbean in relationship to the United States.
And the more the diaspora is concerted,
of enormous intellectual importance that is just not taking place.
Listen to me, I was pushing it back to you guys. The more the diaspora is the advocate, is united and concerted, and makes it clear to the CARICOM countries, including Jamaica, that look here, fractured you are nothing, united you can have a stronger voice. We need you to help us with that, This is why we are on the bridge.
Indeed, and you know, it's interesting that as we speak of the conference and speak of our leaders here in the United States, it's also Caribbean American Heritage Month. So you'd think somehow that this would be the platform from whence we use as our presentation, as part of that whole bringing together and making an impact.
Yeah, man.
And that is lost. That is not being utilized here, because I'm not aware of any CARICOM leadership embracing this Caribbean American Heritage concept month being celebrated here as part of the platform to present themselves even at this conference.
Perhaps we can talk more about that when we come back from the break. Irwine Clare and Basil Wilson on the Global Connection with Irie Jam in New York and the Bridge 99 FM in Kingston. Soon come.
I'll just say this time, North Street.
To the world.
Both on the south side and the north side.
Yeah, let me tell you an interesting thing. I'm attached to the Holy Trinity Cathedral on North Street. And on Sunday last, Basil, we had the great pleasure of welcoming Ambassador Nick Perry and his wife.
Wow.
And he, of course, is a KC man. But he was very gracious about his about the people on the other side of the street,
By the way, I keep mentioning this, and I noticed that when he landed first in Jamaica, he was wearing his purple tie. I don't know what that was all about.
Well, he listen to me. I welcomed him, of course. And what I had to say is, my goodness, how wonderful it is when one of us, born and marinated in Jamaica and all of our favorite substances, gets to go abroad, makes something of himself in public service, and is able to come back to us in that capacity. That is big achievement,
It is. It is.
Yeah. And he seems, I was meeting him for the first time, he and his wife, but they seem to be humble people, and they're happy to come back representing the great United States, all the communities that you all populate, but fully aware of where their navel string is buried,
Indeed. and you see one of the just before I go back to our subject matter, the good thing about him is that he's one of those politicians who was one of our longest serving Jamaican politicians in Albany.
Good.
And so he would have experienced many things, and I've managed to stay above the fray, meaning that there were never any situations attached to him in any form of skullduggery.
Appropriate.
And so he has served well, and I'm quite certain he used that experience to the challenges that he'll face. And I'll just keep saying this again, Ronnie and Prof, is that he's the ambassador of the United States of Jamaica, first and foremost.
Yeah, we got it.
Right, so
we understand all of that. Basil Wilson, I don't know what Irwin has on his agenda, but I'm interested always in picking your brain about American politics. What does the primary elections results on Tuesday say to us about the barometer of American politics? Is the Democratic Party moving more towards the center and less to the tilting to the left? Is that going to help them in the midterms? What's your reading?
Well, I think one of the things that has occurred yesterday is that this notion of criminal justice reform has been approached in the most naive way possible. At one point, there was a certain clamor for defunding the police, which was also quite naive. And I don't think we understand what criminal justice really means in terms of reducing crime. New York City led the way from about 1990 to about 2019 in terms of the marked reduction in violent crime, not just in New York City, but within the United States. But crime doesn't have anything, crime is not just exclusively connected to the criminal justice system. It has a lot to do with what's going on in the economy, whether people are getting opportunities for upward mobility. It has a lot to do with the state of mental health within the society. It has a lot to do with the safety net that exists within an advanced capitalist society. So if you look at these things comparatively and you look at Western Europe is not having the uptick in violent crime and the naivety in terms of looking at criminal justice reform in terms of just decarceration. But it understands that the safety net plays an important role in maintaining social order. Well, I think that is happening in places like San Francisco and Los Angeles is the proliferation of homelessness.
Yeah.
And, the high rate of criminality in terms of shoplifting and what have you, almost a breakdown in social order. And so if the Democrats don't really speak to those kinds of issues and to people's living conditions on a daily basis, not just in terms of inflation, but certainly in terms of social order, that they would pay a price at the polls in November.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw what happened in New Jersey there yesterday. A former Democrat now turned Republican with the support of the Trump administration, his MAGA group. He overwhelmingly won his district. And so you find that, we could find ourselves, flipping what they call it, Reverend Thwaites, MAGA dog for black dog or something.
MAGA dog for black.
But the point is that we also have this heightened toxicity as it relates to white supremacy, as it relates to how persons are now emboldened to do certain things that normally was never the case. And so a lot of concerns. And my major one, however, is whether or not those who must vote will come out and vote. Because that is a determinant factor when you consider all the challenges that have been placed in front of them not to vote.
Well, if ever that cardinal democratic right was at stake, if you don't go out and vote, then the likelihood is that very soon you won't be able to go out and vote.
And that is the objective. But listen, gentlemen, we're going to have to break here and thank Dr. Basil Wilson for joining us today. And he's a gentleman, Dr. Reverend Thwaites, so we can call on any time.
And he's always
ready.
Available directly to us and happily through you an Irie Jam today. Basil, thanks a lot. Till next time.
Reverend
cool.
Thwaites. Thanks a lot, Irwin.
Good.
All right, all the best. Yeah, Ron, as we go to the top of the hour and close down, I wanted to share some local stuff that should be
happy for us to know.
And one that jumps out, Ronnie, is that we hear a lot about the matriarch of VP Records.
Yeah, Pat.
Yes, and
isn't she lovely?
Everybody call her, we call her Miss Pat.
Of course, what else?
Yeah, so last Thursday,
this little Dynamo channel lady.
Yeah, man.
Who just preside as the quiet queen over the Jamaica music industry.
Indeed. And you have to be careful when she comes to you and say a thing. Okay, you're gonna say yes, so be careful. Anyway, last Thursday at the UBS Stadium, and the UBS Stadium, ladies and gentlemen, is this new stadium that was built on the grounds of Belmont Park, that great horse racing endeavor there, right on the border of Queens and Long Island, a fantastic structure. And so the last Thursday, she's the co-founder and president of VP Records.
Right.
Well, she was dressed in her academic regalia, and she graciously, ladies and gentlemen, accepted York College's Presidential Medal from the president. No, that is a significant honor, and it's kind of ironic because we just had Professor Wilson on here, and at one point Professor Wilson was acting president at York College, who have had another Jamaican who was a president there too, Dr. Marcia Keys. So to have Miss Pat being placed in this situation and getting this award, especially as we celebrate our Heritage Month here in the United States, this is an awesome achievement.
Man, I don't know who idea this was, but it is so deserved and so appropriate for the time and in the circumstances. And I don't want to say she hasn't been honored in Jamaica, but the Prophet is certainly with honor in or without honor in our own land, but getting it in the diaspora. That's wonderful, Irwine.
Indeed. And so we're very honored. We're very happy for her. Well deserved. It's good when we continue to get these type of accolades, when we can appreciate them.
But there's something else,
with our faculties.
There's something else before you move on, Irwine. Miss Pat's a very humble lady, She don't make no waves. She not driving she not having a siren going or security guard around her anything else. Yes?
Yes.
And she's just Miss Pat. She's no right honorable or most holiness or anything like that. No, but this is the way we must live, This is the way we are most effective. There is a difference between poppy show and substance, Mr. Clare.
Indeed. While we're on the subject of that, you mentioned, especially from the Chinese community, but you can't tell him he's not a Jamaican inside out. Can tell him come to America with like a grip.
Yeah.
And the other person we just want to send a big shout out to at this particular time is the other, another icon in our community. And I've always said that when we put a different meaning for the word philanthropist, we'll find his name there, and that is Vincent Hosang.
That's a party man.
Man. We just want to send out a big shout out to him and for all that he has done for our society and continue to do, especially his entrepreneurial program there via the Vincent Hosang Foundation at the University of the West Indies that allows young people to go on for other entrepreneurial endeavors.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to bring out to is that, as you know, several activities are being planned for our independence. We'll have several activities that relates to independence balls on August 13th in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. My Pet program, Team Jamaica Bickle, the organizing committee there in Philadelphia, will be hosting their Independence Ball to celebrate Jamaica's 60th. And running from time to time, we're going to be highlighting some of these locations that will be, one would say, blowing up Jamaica as to what they are doing.
I want everybody to come and celebrate, man, and to recognize that there's no distance between us. There's no option that you can't just sit around because this is your identity. This is the roots of your culture, of your prospect for your children and grandchildren. We want to deepen that sense.
Indeed, and this is as we look forward to the this year's diaspora conference is considered a hybrid, where some 100 persons I gather will be in person and the rest will be online.
How effective have those conferences been, Irwine? We want to support them, make no doubt. At the same time, I wonder if are they more than talk shops?
Well, yes, they are. There are some things that have borne fruit.
Persuade me,
there
please.
Are some things. I want to share something that came out, and it was something that we speak highly on. And for years running, we have been arguing about how philanthropic organizations sends things back to Jamaica. And out of that came this entity, National Education Trust. And I must tell you, Ronnie, that group has been phenomenal in fostering how the passage of goods goes to the expected entities in Jamaica.
Well, that's very good. I'm pleased to hear that because we don't know that. We don't hear that perspective.
Because
we hear other things.
The criticisms, yes. And I think it's important that we bring those things up. But you asked about a talk shop. Yes, I'm one of those who would have said it is too. But when you consider that the healthcare component, those persons and organizations who organize themselves to impact Jamaica's healthcare with their own monies, many a times, whether it be the Jaja Foundations, whether it be Dr. Robert Clark, whether it be the OID, all those groups that impacts Jamaica. And I'm just speaking now, I just mentioned those groups out of the tri-state area. There are many others across the United States.
Yes.
Then you mentioned, and of course, those in education, the alumni associations and what they have done. So they have been work there. But have we taken to the next level yet? No, we haven't. That's where the talk shop situation continues. And I think we now have to find that opportunity. And I've always argued here that it's not about Jamaicans being able to vote in Jamaica. It's how we begin to sit on school boards, how we begin to sit on some of these governmental boards to provide external remit to these entities. And at the same time, encouraging transparency and fostering it as well. And I think those are some of the things some of the low-hanging fruits that can be achieved with the new set of dialogue that is hoped to be accomplished from these diaspora conferences.
Well, and I think it's time for us to be very specific and very targeted. And the diaspora is putting in, $2.5, hopefully $3 billion worth of foreign exchange into this country, keeping us going in what are the most difficult times for you and even more so for us. Look at what the World Bank has had to say during this last week about global prospects and of the slipstream that we live in the Caribbean. No? So let's be realistic. But I think you now have to say, listen, we are doing this, you must do that. And it's you're not being feisty and you're not being disrespectful, but you're saying this is what we require. If you do so humbly, I believe that it will have a great focus. And once again, I want to reiterate in a sentence what I said to Basil Wilson and yourself. We have got to, yes, miss, we have got to be in a position where you exert much more pressure because we, in our fractured insular situation, sometimes lose sight of the bigger picture. Irwine Clare, what a pleasure. The Global Connection on Irie Jam
next week.
And the Bridge 99 FM.
All right.
Thanks so much. Thanks to
All the
Karlene
best.
Johnson, owner and operator of Something Country. Thanks to Irwine Clare and Basil Wilson. Thanks to LaFane and Richie Rainford and Jeffrey Brown and everybody here. We give way now to Nikki Z. We are the Alpha and she's the Omega. Stay tuned, the Public Eye. Next week, Pernell and I will be with you. Take care till then.